Microphone check, 1, 2, what is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the Rap Music Plug at your service. The Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth album and song reviews, as well as artist interviews and general rap commentary sprinkled in between on all of what the mainstream and underground rap scenes have to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. What is up, family? I'm here to talk some UK hip-hop in slowthai's TYRON album. Slowthai is a British rapper who saw his career really take off in 2018 with his debut, Nothing Great About Britain. One of the most interesting debut albums I can remember, with production that was at times dirty and left field, and other times was just loud and high energy, very akin to the popular grime movement out in the UK. And with a punk approach too in the lyricism that was very anti-establishment and a vocal delivery that was wildly expressive and unique that really knew how to make an emotional impact. I thoroughly enjoyed that record, so I was eagerly awaiting slowthai's follow-up. With TYRON, slowthai took an interesting approach as he split this album up into two distinct sides. The first side being more aggressive and high energy, whereas the second side being much more introspective and low-key. This approach to splitting up an album between two distinct moods or themes is not necessarily revolutionary. Old by Danny Brown and Big Crit's Forever is a Mighty Long Time come to mind. Danny Brown's Old in particular reminds me a lot of this album TYRON because it took a similar approach and was executed to similarly good but ultimately not great results, largely due to the same reasons. What I find TYRON fails to do on the first half is make the connection between the more hedonistic, party animal lyrical content and the underlying elements of destructive behavior and defense mechanisms that these lyrics are supposed to represent. The purpose of the first side of setting the stage for the realization and vulnerability displayed on the second half isn't clearly articulated and just comes off as bangers that showcase his wild side. Strong tracks like Play With Fire are few and far in between on the first half when it comes to explaining the reasoning for his behavior and what he's running from mentally. And I don't mean to say that the first half would need to be always driving home this message in each and every bar, but some more lyrical references that could contribute to this theme was needed. From Mazza to Watt, they don't do much for the album's theme. And even when the lyrics do contribute a little bit here and there, these tracks are just too mechanical and drab for my liking, and not nearly as infectious as the bangers at the beginning of this record were in 45 Smoke and Cancelled, the latter of which is an amazingly catchy Skepta-assisted track that has a really nice hook. Lyrically, this track somewhat references the controversy at the 2020 NME Awards, where he creeped on one of the women presenters on stage in a really awkward and not okay kind of way. He had since apologized, and the most important fact is that the woman in question accepted that apology. But in general, although slowthai has addressed this controversy in the past through music, through some solo tracks, as well as kind of his social media and interviews and things like that, in general, this track is more just talking about the idea that slowthai is unstoppable and can't be cancelled. It's honestly not all that political, the song title notwithstanding, of course. It's more of just a fun track that slowthai and Skepta absolutely kill. Another good moment on the first half of TYRON is Dead, which actually shows what I mean by successfully achieving this balance of thematic progression in lyrics painting Ty as someone who is dead inside, coping with alcohol, women, etc., but also being a hard and menacing track that has a really nice energy, much like the first half of this album. Once it gets to the second disc, though, I think this album really starts to become much more memorable. The second disc starts with a great intro in I Tried, with a nice, soulful, bluesy feeling beat that sees slowthai open up about his mental health struggles, particularly the fact that he has ADHD. And although the song is dealing with depressing subject matter, the tone is much more prideful than you'd think, showing that slowthai is acknowledging the important aspect of his journey, which is that he is trying and wants to keep that in mind. I think this is a really positive message to be putting out there, so I really appreciate it. The more passionate and animated delivery is also something that the second disc highlights best, which is one of slowthai's best traits in my opinion. The production in particular on side 2 is much more creative. I think the way the dreamy pop singing and acoustic guitar is weaved into Push is really well done. The song is very ethereal, and I absolutely adore Deb Never's guest vocals here. NHS's vocal sample is very similar to something I'd expect on a Brockhampton song, which isn't that surprising considering Dominic Fike is on the album 2 tracks prior. And then Feel Away is a standout, with the icing on the cake being James Blake's gorgeous, vulnerable singing. I absolutely love this man. He can so effortlessly cultivate intimacy in his songs just from his voice. And then finally, side 2 features ADHD, which is the emotional centerpiece of this album. Definitely my favorite song on the album, and maybe slowthai's best song of his entire career, as he really clearly articulates his negative behaviors with intense emotion, particularly on that last verse, all over a really nice instrumental that complements the verses really well. This is a phenomenal song that sees Ty get real deep and passionately brings us into his mind state that is constantly affected by this ADHD illness. And in that final verse, he really makes you feel like you yourself are in this state of pure mania and confusion and inability to focus, showcasing once again slowthai's wildly expressive delivery that is very emotionally impactful. ADHD ends the album off on the highest of notes. TYRON has its heart and its head, honestly, in the right place. It just lacks the lyrical precision on the first half to put it over the top. This album has a lot more to offer than just wild energy and cold-hearted bangers, but it unfortunately uses a good portion of the first half of this album to try to portray the duality of his complicated psyche in a really unfocused manner. But still, I want to stress that this album has a lot of great qualities to it, especially on the second half of the album that is much more engaging from a lyrical and musical standpoint, which solidifies TYRON as certainly a worthwhile and admirable effort from slowthai. All in all, I give TYRON by slowthai a 7.2 on 10. There's a lot of good quality elements to this album, and I am very hopeful that slowthai can fully put it all together on his follow-up to this album, because creatively he is pushing himself and he is seemingly maturing as the years go by. So those are all great signs that he can drop an album that is truly special in the near future. So this concludes today's episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV. I hope this episode gave you some fresh new perspectives on the latest rap releases, as well as a recommendation for the next great rap record to add to your collection. But now that I've spoken, it's your turn to have your voice heard. So let's stay in touch. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Rohview, ROHVIEW, to connect with me on a personal level, where you'll be able to interact with my thoughts and perspectives on music, surely, but also on politics and sports as well. If you're an artist who wants to get their new song or album reviewed on the show, hit me up via email at qlctv.podcast@gmail.com or just send me a DM on Twitter or Instagram. I would love to give you public feedback through a review or private feedback if that's what you'd prefer. I would love to be a part of helping you grow as an artist, to help the show grow and ensure that everyone's listening to the best rap music at all times. Make sure you leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts so that the show can be spotlighted by that wonderful algorithm and be exposed to more people. For exclusive content and updates related to the show, follow the Rap Music Plug podcast on Facebook. You can find all of this information along with exclusive playlists created by myself by clicking the link that's in the episode's notes. So that's all for today. Talk to you soon.